Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Bowl Predictions here at Inside Nebraska. With me, as always, Steve Marik and Greg Smith. I'm Zack Carpenter. And even though it's a bye week, we still got bold predictions to make because we got another second half of the season to play, boys. We're six games down, 6 to go. Before I get into that, real quick, it is a bye week, guys. Steve, you're married and you have a daughter. Greg, you're married. I have a girlfriend. I'm a little behind you guys. In the life department, but we're striving, we're getting there. So today, is it a weekend? I mean, I'm using it as a build-up credit weekend, pumpkin patch and corn maze and all that. Is that what you guys are doing? What are the weekend plans?
Go, Steve, I'll let you go first on that because I'm sure you have something fun.
No, I'm going to be watching football. I'll just be on the couch watching.
I love
football.
that.
I am surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna be watching football. Maybe I'm a bad husband or whatever, but I think the good thing about me is I married someone who also likes to just hang around at the house and watch some TV, and that's what we'll be doing. So I'm not gonna be leaving the house on Saturday, probably.
Solid.
Steve is all ball. Steve knows ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so funny that you brought this up, Zack, because I was doing my neighborhood walk earlier this morning. My wife called me and realized that it is the bye week. And was like, oh, so what could I sign you up for this weekend? And yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what I get signed up for. We'll see. I don't know. I'm definitely not using it for credit, though. I'll tell you that. I got enough credit built up. But if she hears this, she hears this. But there's enough credit built up. But Zack, you're still in that phase where you need to build up some street cred.
Oh yeah. Karina listens to these too, and she knows that. I'm like, all right, Oregon, Washington, would love to watch it, but honestly, it's going to be good to get away from college football for me for like a day or two, just to avoid the burnout. But I'm actually looking forward to it. I haven't been to a corn maze in a long time. I've only done it once,
Nice.
and first and only time they handed me the map, and I was like, "We don't need this. Why do you have a map? Like it's a maze. That's the point." Within like 10 minutes, I'm just completely lost. I'm like, "All right, pull the map out. Let's go ahead and try to figure this out." But again, all that digressing. It's going to be a good weekend of college football, but Nebraska won't be there. They are on a bye. So is Northwestern, the Week 8 opponent next Saturday at 2:30. But we'll be dissecting that game next week. Right now, going with predictions. We did this last year, and I think we got them all exactly right on the second half of the season. No doubt about it. After the Purdue game, like I'm sure we all are batting 1,000, but we're going through a bold prediction each and then a final record prediction each today. We're going to go around the horn here. Steve, starting with you, you're batting leadoff.
Yeah, so my bold prediction right now is Heinrich Haarberg will continue to be the QB1 at Nebraska, but that's not my bold prediction. But he will finish. I'm going to say he finishes in the top 5 of the Big Ten in average total yards per game. So that's rushing and passing yards. Obviously, he's 12th right now with a little over 160 total yards per game. He's at 163. I just think that Heinrich is going to continue to improve in all aspects of his game as he continues to get more reps, play in more games. I think he's going to improve right in front of our eyes, and I think it's going to be pretty cool to see, especially through the air. I just think he's gaining more confidence. We know what he can do on the ground with his legs, being an athlete. He's excellent in that area. But there's still obviously a lot of rawness and development still to come in that pass game. And I think he's going to continue to improve the more he does it. And I think Marcus Satterfield, offensive coordinator at Nebraska, is going to realize, I mean, they have already realized, this has already been happening, that the Big Ten defenses are not going to want they're not going to want to get beat by Heinrich Haarberg's athletic ability and his legs. So they're going to try to keep him in the pocket. I think that's going to benefit Heinrich because I think he has a lot of potential as a thrower. And I think he's going to impress some of us that think that he's, not the thrower. So I think Heinrich Haarberg is going to continue to produce on the ground, in the air, and he will wind up at the end of the regular season in the top 5 of the conference in average total yards per game. So we will see how far off or how dead on I am at the end of the year.
Man, I like that a lot, and I'm vibing with you on that because I think that one of the things that we like, and I know we don't do it on the staff, as I know that, but I've talked to you guys about Haarberg and his development. I know how both of you feel. I feel like fans are very quick to kind of throw him to the side and be like, oh, he just did it against blah, 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 insert bad opponent. Or, they've got to go get a guy in the portal in the offseason, skipping all the way to that. But why is it out of the realm of possibility that he gets better? Like I feel like, and this is why I'm so glad you said this, Steve, I feel like he's gotten better each week. Especially as a passer. And so, I'm curious to see how that goes for him. So I like that bold prediction as a quick side note. That has nothing to do with my bold prediction.
Real quick, Greg, before you go into your bold prediction. Steve and I on the drive back from Chicago after the Illinois game, or back to the airport in Chicago after the Illinois game, we had a heated argument, or not argument, we had a heated conversation a little bit where we were both on the same side. We were both agreeing with a lot of the stuff you just said. I mean, I wrote about it in this week's midseason awards. Like, for people, for fans who are frustrated or disappointed in Haarberg's performance this year, it's like, do you know what the alternative is if he's not out there? Like, this is what he's doing, considering the context of everything, being called in into battle right here. Like, it's been a godsend what he's brought to the program, just as far as stabilization. No, he's not a spectacular star quarterback like you're going to see at Ohio State or USC or some years at Alabama. Not this year, obviously, but he stabilized the offense. What he's been giving them to give them enough offense to offer up the chance to win has been pretty. I think we would have all been shocked. I think we would have all been shocked if we were sitting here today and one of the stats about Heinrich Haarberg from Arbitrary Analytics, was a Twitter account that I love following. I think it sprouted up not too long ago. Is that Heinrich Haarberg is one of 12 players in the country who has, let me find it here. I think I might have deleted it. It's great podcasting. Mm-hmm. They had 1,200. Where is this stat? He's really good. All right, I'll shout the stat whenever I find it. I had it here a second ago, but I believe it was 600 passing yards. That's right. I got it off the memory. He's one of 12 players in the country with 600 or more passing yards and 300 or more rushing yards. So to be in that category as a third string quarterback last year, who was and third string in the spring, who sounded like he might be moving positions at one point. Obviously that did not come to fruition. That's not what the staff intended, but I just think it's a point at the midway point of this season to really own in on how important it's been.
And that's one thing I wanted to touch on real quick here before we get to you, Greg, is I'm not saying like Heinrich Haarberg is the Huskers quarterback for next season or the next season after that. I'm not saying that at all, because I think Matt Rhule and Marcus Satterfield are going to do their due diligence and getting the best quarterback here in the offseason that they can. And maybe it's on the roster, maybe currently on the roster, maybe it's currently not. But right now, I believe from what I've seen, Heinrich Haarberg is the best option to be leading this offense. And I think it's an option that gives you a good opportunity, a strong opportunity to make a bowl game. And that would be, for that to happen here at Nebraska after not happening since 2016, when Mike Riley was walking the sidelines. I mean, that's just incredible to think about that. Heinrich Haarberg, the kid from Kearney Catholic, is going to be coming here and leading the team. Obviously, the defense is going to be wearing the pants in the family and controlling things as well.
Hey, Matt Rhule said it.
I think Heinrich Haarberg is the one that can do just enough to get this offense to score some points and move the ball consistently. I mean, I'm saying all this bold prediction along with knowing that Marcus Washington, who I think some fans might overlooking with his season-ending injury not being out there. I mean, that's brutal, and I'm still thinking that Heinrich is going to continue to get better, even with the receiving core that he has that just does not have a lot of firepower and juice right now. So I just like Haarberg. I like his potential, and I think he's somebody that learns through the fire right now, and he's definitely being thrown in the fire, and I think he'll get better.
Yeah, and it's only one last point on this whole thing is that we you said, it could be much worse with the backup quarterback coming in to replace. We saw it. We have seen that. Like, Nebraska lost a game at home to Troy, in 2018 because they had a backup quarterback out there that and sorry, again, no disrespect to Andrew Bunch, who was the quarterback that day, but it looked nothing like what it looks like when Heinrich Haarberg is out there. It's just, I feel like we've gotten to the point to where people are expecting too much in that situation, but also not appreciating what he's done. But I'm going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and this is going to break a rule that we've kind of had running on the show about not picking Nebraska to do things before they see it. And I got to do it, man. Maybe that Matt Rhule press conference has got me thinking. I'm drinking the Rhule-Aid over here. Shout out to Husker Twitter for that. My bold prediction is that Nebraska will only lose one more game the rest of the season. So it's bold only because Nebraska doesn't do stuff like this. It is not bold because of the schedule. The schedule, the more I look at this schedule and I think about this, people are talking about Maryland as this juggernaut team that is the best team that Nebraska is going to play. If that's the case, and it is, I think, and that Maryland really is the best team that Nebraska is going to play, I'm just going to take my chances with this bold prediction. I don't think they can't run the table. That's just crazy. The one thing that does really worry me about this is that offensive firepower. But I do think that the more I see this team play, the more I think that they're morphing slowly and finally into a real Big Ten team. Because when you watch, and hey, we were talking about the bye week, and now that Nebraska's off, you'll get to watch any Big Ten West team that's out there besides Northwestern that's playing this week, and it's going to look a heck of a lot like what you've seen from Nebraska. And I think that's actually a good thing. I know that people will cringe at that, but I think it's past time that Nebraska actually feels like a team that's in this conference versus trying to be something else. And so I like that for Matt Rhule, and I like what he's trying to do. But this schedule, and especially the fact that you play in this month, you can continue to get that ball rolling with Northwestern and then Purdue, both of those games at home. Michigan State, by the time we get to that Michigan State game in November, will their coaches have any feeling that they're going to still be there the next year? How many more players will enter the portal? I think that this is set up for Nebraska to actually have a good finish to the season. The only thing, two things that make me nervous about this is, like I said in the beginning, one, Nebraska just doesn't do stuff like this. And two, the injuries are piling up. I would like to see Luke Reimer and Deshaun Singleton come back to really cement this. But I'm going bold. It is bold predictions, baby.
I thought I was going to be going bold today when we were doing our final record predictions, and Greg went out there and just swung for the fences. He's trying to hit not out of the park, out of the stadium itself. Man, 8-4. I get it. The schedule is tough, but like you said, I can't be there with you that far. I'm a step behind you, I mean, 5-1 would be a big deal with Wisconsin and Iowa. I mean, last year we talked about that gauntlet at the end of the year with Michigan and Iowa. Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa was the 3 games at the end of the year where it's like a gauntlet. It's not to that level this year with Maryland at home and then Wisconsin on the road and Iowa at home. But that's still a really tough 3-game run to end the year. And you have these next 3 games coming up that are all extremely winnable. There's that phrase, you can take a drink if we're doing a drinking game at home, because I feel like that's what we all say about the rest of this schedule. But I mean, I'll just go ahead with my record prediction now since we're on it. I mean, I have them at 7-5, so not to the 8-4 level that you are, because I mean, I have them beating Northwestern, beating Purdue, and then from the start, I've had them splitting Michigan State and Maryland. Whichever one, I just don't see them winning both games, and it's just like my prediction last year, where I saw the Rutgers and Purdue games lined up, and I'm like, on paper they should beat Rutgers. And on paper, they should maybe beat Purdue, but I mean, such a tough place for them to play. But
they always play. It's always weird there.
I had them splitting whatever the final result was, and that's what I see here. I mean, going on the road to Michigan State, I think could be a letdown spot. That classic, you talk about not picking Nebraska to do something it hasn't done, and I think that Michigan State game could be a letdown spot where you might be coming off a win over Northwestern, win over Purdue, and then boom, road trip to East Lansing that Rhule has talked about in the spring. But Like he mentioned that specifically a couple times, just as examples of like, you gotta win Big Ten games in the elements in October, November, like in East Lansing. And then you welcome in a totally different animal and style, maybe not animal, but style in Maryland. But you're right. They're not some unbeatable juggernaut. I think the Wisconsin game is the one where it's like, I just really like Wisconsin. I know, Steve, you're there with me on Wisconsin and what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah. I like Wisconsin more than most people, I guess. I like the coaching staff more than most people. I know Greg and I have talked about that quite often. But
that's why Greg was like laughing.
You don't like him more than most people. I saw before the season that Luke Fickell's a top 10 coach in the country. What are you talking about?
That's true. Maybe I'm just limiting.
You're right in line. Yeah, you're right in line. I think I'm the outlier on that. That's totally fine. We'll see what he does. He must be the next Urban Meyer.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think I'll just go with my record right now. I think 7-5 seems good to me. I was thinking 6-6 earlier, but just looking at the schedule, Purdue kind of scares me a little bit. They're weird. I think Hudson Card, he can be a baller at sometimes. He can do some things with his legs, and but looking down the road trips at Michigan State, I just don't know what Michigan State's going to look like, at that point in time. Maryland is also interesting just because of the good start that they always kind of seem to have, and then they kind of taper off as they hit the Big Ten schedule. But, Tagovailoa, he can sling it, and he always can, I think, generate some offense. And again, Iowa, we know what Iowa is going to be bringing here. They're going to have their backup quarterback, their 260-pound backup quarterback. But I just see a 6-6, but I think I'll go with a 7-5 for my final record projection. And it's going to be a fun Iowa game, Black Friday Iowa game. And I think it's just, one that's not going to, if you lose that, I don't think it's going to end the season, because I think they're going to have 6 wins before that one. So I think it's going to be a 7-5 final record for Huskers. And I think it's going to be an incredible showing from Matt Rhule in his first year, just to come into this program and get them to turn around and get to a bowl game. It's going to be good, if I'm right.
I think the thing is I think we're all, maybe based on what we're all saying, in agreement on this, that if they get to 6, 7, or 8, and I am predicted 8-4, and I had to, because I locked myself in with the only one loss for the rest of the way. But if they get to any of those, it's a tremendous job from Matt Rhule. And we're going to have to write columns about how great of a job that this was and what he did, and not only kind of getting the program better, but in short order, but getting them better, after the injuries, after the 0-2 start, all of that stuff. It would just be fascinating to see that happen. Now, I do think that the one thing about the schedule, and I think that this is one of the easier ones that I've seen Nebraska have, as we finish it out, especially. But I think that everyone also agrees, and Matt Rhule said this the other day, is that they can beat anyone on the schedule, and anyone on the schedule can beat them, right? And so that's what also makes you a little bit nervous. And I was thinking about it as Steve was kind of running through quickly some of the things that these teams bring to the table, is everyone has something that makes you a little bit nervous, but then everybody also has something they're like, oh, we can kind of exploit that, and they're just not overall that good, which I think will make for a lot of fun football. It might not be pretty in every game, but it's going to be compelling. I think that's the way that I'll put it, kind of in the way that I thought that Illinois game was going to be compelling. It was something. It was. And so we'll see down the stretch. But 8-4 is my prediction, which means, though, and I know that Zack picked up on this, that means that one of either Iowa or Wisconsin, I think they're going to beat. I think it's going to be Iowa. As much as I want to hate on Luke Fickell in Wisconsin, I don't see that streak ending this year. Not quite yet. But that Iowa game that Steve was talking about too, you forgot to mention the Brian Ferrett's points situation. I want that to be the thing.
To 325.
Yes, they need to be at 300 when we get to that game, so that it basically sets up for, if Nebraska has a good defensive day, then they'll hold him under that. That is number one thing that I'm rooting for, even beyond my prediction to be right, because I think that would be great.
storylines galore for the Hawkeyes and the Huskers game. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Matt Rhule's first taste of that rivalry. Like, I'll be curious to see what the vibe is. Like, if he kind of embraces that, what the players say, because we've talked about this before. I think that this rivalry kind of turned and took a new life when Nebraska's players actually finally started embracing it, because you would watch those games and Iowa's players took joy in just like pummeling Nebraska, especially at the line of scrimmage. And Nebraska finally fought back against that and took some pride in that. And I think that's what really helped them.
Yeah, I think one point that you were saying earlier, I think the uglier the football for Nebraska, the better for Nebraska at this point with how, you hope the offense takes some steps and grows, and that you have some of those freshman guys coming along in the receiver room with all the injuries. But yeah, Iowa's offense, Iowa's offense, I don't think they're going to get to that 325. It's not looking great for them right now. But hey, we make fun of Iowa's offense and that whole the contract because it's funny. And it's like you turn around and watch Nebraska's offense, and it's like, well, still funny.
But they also prove that you can win a lot of games like that. Like, that's the thing that kind of frustrates me about this whole thing, is you can win a whole lot of games like that. Now, Iowa is never going to be confused with like a college football playoff contender. That's not going to be a thing. But they're also in neither will Nebraska at this point. But you hope that Nebraska can continue to build. Like, Kirk Ferentz has been there, like, it feels like as long as we've all been alive. And so at some point they should have been able to put together some offense. They can't. And so you hope Nebraska can go past that. So Nebraska looking like or being just slightly above Iowa's offense in year one of Matt Rhule is totally fine. Like, I think people need to just kind of embrace that and be okay with it.
And one more point that you hit on, talking about writing columns and feature stories at the end of the year, if Nebraska goes 7 or 5 or 8 and 4, that's one of my points is I think that, not to step on the toes of our bold predictions that's going up on the site in addition to this video, but I have Nebraska at 7-5, and I think that job, the context of it all, Matt Rhule's obviously not going to win Big Ten Coach of the Year. It's going to wind up going to James Franklin or Ryan Day or Jim Harbaugh, probably whoever wins the conference. I would guess, unless Northwestern gets to a bowl game, and then David Braun would have consideration as well.
Yeah.
I love that guy. He's going to get a good DC gig if he doesn't stay there.
Yeah,
Rhule, good for him.
That's my record prediction is 7-5, and that Rhule gets some votes for Big Ten Coach of the Year. Just as a storyline, like if he does that with all the injuries, with taking over this big build, a heavy lift of a rebuild, and taking a Nebraska to a bowl game first time since 2016, I think that would be worthy of it. And speaking of bowl games, is it too early, fellas, to talk about which bowl game they might be going to?
Let's give it a couple weeks. We don't want to jinx that. Let's not go too crazy. Yeah.
All right, we'll wait until we'll put a pin in it, and then going into Maryland, we can start talking bowl projections. But I already wrote them down. I did all the work here to write the four things.
Don't jinx it. Right? Don't jinx it.
All right. Well, just a tease. Steve would love it because one of them is in a certain city in Nevada. Is one of the projections. Sweet. So, also, Greg, you've known Steve a lot longer than I have. You know him a lot better than I do, and he's gone 6-0. He's the only one who's gone 6-0 on our bold predictions with picking the winner, and seemed like he was a little apprehensive. It seemed like he wanted to go 6-6, but then he heard you 8-4, me 7-5, and then I caught a little look there at the end where he's like, I don't know, I should have stuck with 6-6. Is that what you were picking up?
Yeah, I wanted.
I was going to say yes. Yes. So go ahead, Steve. Yes.
Go for himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I heading into
it's better
the
to go safe. Yeah.
Yeah, heading into the season, I was like, yeah, I could see 6 wins there. And now they're like, looking at the schedule and how the upcoming schedule and how those opponents are looking right now, it's like, yeah, I could see 7 now. I could see another win in there for sure.
Which actually that's really a good sign, right? That as we move through the season, we're actually feeling better about the team. That actually goes to something that both Rhule and Tony White have talked about getting better as the season goes along. We'll get to the championship month of November, to quote Tony White, here pretty soon.
Personally, for me, I wonder what I would be thinking if Nebraska was 3-3, but they had beat Minnesota and lost to Illinois, because you guys know, like I was saying after the NIU podcast, going into Louisiana Tech, it was like a win is like the highest of highs. It's like you could start see it progressing, and a loss is like, oh, sky is falling. So they went into the bye week though after winning that huge swing game over Illinois, and they have some momentum going with them throughout the rest of the season. I never gave my bold prediction, my own one. So we jumped around. I loved it because I love the freelancing that we do here, and then always leads. The last like 3 times we've done this, it's led to like a really good big picture conversation. But looking throughout the rest of the season, my bold prediction is on the defense, which, I mean, shocking. I think the defense is going to be really good the rest of the year. Right now, Nebraska's run defense is at 75.8 yards per game allowed through 6 games, and most of that is from Michigan. Take out the Michigan game, and the other 5, they're allowing 41 and some change. My bold prediction is that Nebraska is going to finish number 2 all time in rushing yards allowed per game in program history. Number 1 right now, and for 56 years has been the 1967 team with 67.5 rushing yards allowed per game. And Nebraska right now is number 3 all time, sandwiched in between number 2 from the 1997 team, which was 73.4 yards allowed per game. They won a national title that year. They had our own Jay Foreman on it, our former Husker black shirt and NFL veteran, as Steve always says in the intro.
Yep.
And so that's number 2. Number 3 is this year. Number 4 on that list is the 1999 team with 77.1 rushing yards allowed per game. Both of those teams, 97, 99, just loaded with NFL dudes and studs on both defenses. And I think Nebraska might have a couple of future NFL guys on this defense, and Nash Hutmacher and John Bullock or Isaac Gifford, Deshaun Singleton once he comes back healthy. And that's the thing with this prediction is you really hope that they get Luke Reimer and Deshaun Singleton back going forward. But the offenses they're facing over the next 3 weeks, they're anemic offenses to match Nebraska's mostly anemic offense. But that's why I think, and their rushing totals these next few games. I had it right here. It's Northwestern. Won't rattle off a bunch of stats again, but their rushing offense is last in the Big Ten. Purdue's is 8th. Michigan State's is 11th, and then you have Maryland at 7th, Iowa at 12th. Wisconsin is the one where that one's in danger. They're rushing for 203.8 yards per game, and they're first in the Big Ten.
But they have an air raid offense, Zach. What are you talking about?
What'd you say?
But they have an air raid offense. Phil Longo, come on, he's going to throw it 60 times a game. He's changing Wisconsin.
That's funny. They still got Braylon Allen.
They still got Braylon Allen. They still have massive offensive linemen that are being groomed in their backyard. They're going to run it down the throats. They're still going to do it.
Steve loves that. Steve hated that. That was probably his least favorite storyline of the
offseason.
It had to have been your top 3. I had
nightmares. I couldn't go to sleep when I started hearing those comments from everybody thinking Phil Longo was going to air it out in Madison, Wisconsin. It's like, come on, look at the roster, look at the offensive line, look at the running backs. He's going to run it.
It was all wishful thinking. Like, that's not that, for the record. That was not.
That was just Husker fans hoping that Wisconsin got bad because they were going to start throwing the ball more.
That's what that was. Yeah, I totally agree.
Save it for the Wisconsin pod. Save it for the Wisconsin pod.
Dude, that Wisconsin pod's gonna be long, man. We're gonna end up going in on the Wisconsin pod.
That's one of the things that Steve and I were talking about. It's like the storylines are so obvious for that game. I mean, you know what? I'm not even gonna go down that path. We'll be here.
Don't do it.
5-10 minutes. But any last words to add? Just any last thoughts on what we've seen so far? What you think we're about to see over these next 6 games?
Nebraska's got momentum. They have a really good defense. They have a really good defense at stopping the run, which Matt Rhule wants to build in his programs. And they got a quarterback that is not bad, who is learning on the fly his first college games ever in his life. He's doing it right now this season. So let's give him time. Let's just not make any harsh judgments on him or Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, who's just trying to piece together something to move this offense with all the injuries and adversity that they've had, all the defections, as Matt Rhule called it on Tuesday. Let's all hold off judgment on those and just watch how this plays out, because I think it could be something special for Nebraska. I think this could be a special season in getting to the postseason for the first time in 2016.
I echo those sentiments. Enjoy the ride is the thing that I would say I'm looking forward to for the second half of the season. As weird as it's going to get, because it always does around here, and the football will not always be aesthetically pleasing. I think that Nebraska is building something that it feels like an actual real life identity for Nebraska football is being developed. And I think that even beyond the wins and losses, though the wins are nice, that's a really important thing for the future of Matt Rhule at this program. And I think that seeing that play out in real time, led by that defense that's for real, it is pretty cool to see. And I think people will enjoy that in the second half of the season, especially with those offenses that Zack laid out. Like, man, those run offenses, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough sledding for some of those teams to run against Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska has made every team except for Michigan. It's made them one-dimensional against this defense and taken the run game out from that offensive arsenal. And last thing to your point, Greg, Greg and I talked about this a little bit on Rapid Recap on Tuesday, is that Illinois, the moment after Anthony Grant fumbled, and Steve, you wrote about this, the moment after Anthony Grant fumbled and Rhule called on the defense to step up, and they pretty much told him to F off, like, get out of this huddle. And it's not like that was insubordinate by the players. That's what I think Rhule loved that. And
definitely.
I think that was the first moment where it's like, okay, this is a player-led program. And then Rhule talked about Quentin Newsome, sort of echoing that too earlier this week. And we're seeing that, I think, play out. I do think that we could look back on that as a seminal moment, a seminal game, depending on how the rest of the second half of this season shapes out and down the line in the Rhule era. So we have more on that already at InsideNebraska.com. We have more stuff coming throughout the week. Steve's ran through some of the biggest questions that Nebraska's offense has to answer during the bye week as it heads into the second half, and the defense and special teams. Greg has three bye week goals for Nebraska recruiting, and we've got more recruiting stuff and analysis up at InsideNebraska.com. Encourage you guys to head over there, check it out. Encourage you guys to like this video, subscribe to the Inside Nebraska YouTube page, and get these videos dropped directly into your feed. We'll be back next week. No media availability this week anymore with Rhule having gone on Tuesday, but we'll be back next week, probably Monday, and then with some more digital stuff, recruiting blitz, black shirt breakdown, our rapid recap videos, and bold predictions as we go after Steve's guy David Braun in the Northwestern Wildcats. So hopefully a lot of fun stuff coming up for Nebraska and Nebraska fan base. So for Steve Marik, Greg Smith, I'm Zack Carpenter. I'll catch you guys again next time.